We need to understand, how the system functions in Lebanon. In fact, power does not necessarily lie in state institutions. In fact, the government doesn't really govern.
نحن اليوم نحتكم إلى الناس، إلى مطلبهم بمحاسبة المسؤولين عن هذه الكارثة المختبئة منذ 7 سنوات. لذلك أعلن اليوم استقالة هذه الحكومة.
Of course, we need to get rid of this ruling class. But way more important is to claim back the state. If you fail, you should say why you did fail. And this is something that wasn't said yesterday when the Prime Minister resigned. He said they didn't let me work, they're corrupt, etc. But he didn't name anyone, as if he's absolving himself from any responsibility and absolving the elite from their responsibility. We always talk about someone who's responsible. We never name this person who should be responsible. Because we know that this ruling class doesn't necessarily respect the constitution, this might take weeks or even months for the president to invite, the MPs to designate, one person for this mission. For years we had no president. For years we didn't have a government, and for years we had a dysfunctional parliament. This is a very risky scenario because the society is facing a lot of challenges, starting with COVID-19 to the reconstruction, to the humanitarian crisis that we're facing right now. During the war, we have kind of a territorial disintegration, and on each and every part we have a militia. They were governing the society, whether by collecting direct taxes or even offering, security for those citizens who live in these areas. So just after the war, was the declaration of what we call the Ta'if Agreement, which is an agreement signed in order to put an official end to the civil war. We didn't have any kind of accountability. So the Lebanese society suffered greatly from the lack of accountability. And therefore, the same warlords, the same militia leaders, they became overnight the politicians, the ministers, and the leaders of this country. So the same way they were operating when they were heads of militia, offering services, offering security in return, is the same way they were running, state institution. Each group, each political leader took part of the state, one institution, one ministry, in order to serve his own constituency. It served the image of the leader. He's a leader that no one can render accountable. He's a leader that can, commit whatever crime, whether, physical or war crime, or even, by, smuggling arms or whatever, crime it could be. They were completely immune. They absolved themselves from their responsibilities towards civilians, the war, and they say, now we're clean, we're gonna go about, our life and be the politicians and ministers, etc., etc. So that's why currently accountability is very, very important. This accountability that we didn't have in the 90s. That's why we should now call for accountability and render them accountable for the crime they did commit in Beirut a couple of days ago. They're protesting, they're doing a lot of amazing things, but they didn't turn themselves into a real political actor that can impose itself as a political actor, sitting on the same table with these politicians and negotiating their own terms or putting pressure on them or negotiating with them. It's not enough to say these leaders are corrupt. It's not enough to say we want to fight corruption. It's not enough to say we want to abolish sectarianism. It's more important to say how we go about it. What's my vision towards the society? What's the new social contract that I want to implement when I get rid of this? So in order to break the cycle, in order to break the monopoly of the ruling class on state institutions, we at least need to have a real opposition in the country that is backed up by the normal citizen, by the society.